Hello. I'm going to give it a little minute, as they always say at the beginning of these things, just to kind of let people get themselves in and get themselves settled. We were just talking about whether it was okay for us to drink on these webinars. None of us are tonight, but we've got one more next week. So if
As far
anyone,
as you know.
as far as I know, well, yeah. Joe says it's water. I say it's water, but who knows? Yeah. But if anyone's grabbing themselves their last cup of tea, glass of wine out there, we can't see you, I'm afraid, but hope you're getting settled. I'll wait for the minute. And also our lovely assistant Jess in the background. She'll give me a little. And if anyone that has joined and they want to sort of share in the chat, you know, names, where you're from, what you're sort of looking to learn today, you can share all that. Say hello to us. Let us know that you're out there. Okay, I've got the nods from our beautiful Jess in the background. I sound like some sort of game show host. Sorry, our beautiful Jess. She is beautiful. Okay, anyway, let's get on with it. This is the third webinar in the Life is a Revolution series brought to you by Paradigm Norton. So welcome. My name is Carmel Dickinson. I am the founder and director of Worthy Consultancy. It's a business consultancy to help women and diverse founders find success on their own terms. And I am very passionate about finances, so I'm very happy to be asked by Paradigm Norton to host tonight. This 4-part webinar series was built with a focus on the key challenges and opportunities facing women in their midlife and beyond. Here we have created a space to understand the powerful relationship between financial planning and a fulfilling life. Nothing is a taboo, and there is no such thing as a stupid question. Tonight is Revitalise, a discussion on how to be physically, mentally, and financially healthy. If you missed our discussions on reinvention and relationships, you can watch them on YouTube. We will send you the links after tonight. Or if you have joined previously, welcome back. I'm really glad that you're finding this series beneficial. I know I am. Just, you know, I'm not just hosting, I'm learning quite a lot along the way. This series, as I said, is brought to you by Paradigm Norton. As an employee-owned B Corp certified firm, they are committed to championing financial clarity and empowerment for women. They integrate ethical and sustainable business practices with expert wealth management. They are dedicated to helping clients achieve financial well-being, which is so important. Under the leadership of the new CEO, Philippa Han, who you will have seen possibly in the other two. She was a host and she was a panelist. Paradigm Norton continues to drive a value-based mission that prioritizes purpose alongside profit. Just some quick housekeeping for the event. We're going to be doing questions at the end of the chat. We're going to go through our section in discussion, and then we'll try and get to questions as quickly as we can. So add your questions, but please do that in the Q&A section, not the chat box, and we will try to get to as many as we can. But you can start adding them in at any time. Please don't wait for the end. Just add them in when you think of them. This event is recorded and will be shared. So while they won't see your name appear, and I will try not to read them out, if you are considering asking something personal or sensitive, you can opt to ask anonymously in the box. You can change your name. Sometimes Zoom automatically has your name, so just to protect your privacy if you need to. The recording will be shared with you after this evening, as will all the details of our amazing panelists and where you can speak to them, chat to them, connect to them. Here's a little compliance bit, because we are going to be talking about financial subjects. The content of this webinar is for information purposes only and does not constitute financial advice. Please seek independent financial advice before making any decisions. The opinions discussed are those of the individuals only and do not necessarily reflect the questions of the organisation. So why Revitalise? Me personally, as a midlife woman, I have really had to start prioritising my health. I'm sensing some aches and pains that weren't there before, some clicks. I make a noise when I sit down. There is definitely a transition happening. And I just can't stop reading about the way they put it as unique health challenges that we're starting to face. I was just sharing with Joe about how I forgot my own phone number, which I've had for 12 years, not so long ago, which was very scary to me. It was really panicking. And I thought, is this menopause knocking at my door? Why is this even happening to me? And I went on a forum, and then there was of people talking about this. And there was a woman who said she couldn't remember the name of a computer keyboard and she works in IT. So I was like, okay, This is bad, but it's, on various levels. So I can see that so many of us at this stage in our life, our bodies are changing in ways that require lots of different care than before. We have fluctuating estrogens levels that affect everything from bone density to heart health and weight loss. I know that Diet Coke and Marlboro Lights for 1 week that I did in my 20s, don't recommend it to anyone, but Kate Moss was an influence back then. I used to drop a dress size like nothing. If I did that now, I would just feel really sick and it still wouldn't work. Shifting weight is just a different kettle of fish now. So we understand that the investment we make in our health today shapes our quality of life for the next few decades to come, hopefully. Women who establish strong, healthy habits in midlife often enjoy greater mobility, sharper cognition, and more energy in their later years. Sounds great. So just like an investment financially in your future is important too. 43% of women could not afford to support their household beyond 3 months if they are unable to work due to an illness. And with only 7% having income protection and 24% of women saying that they don't have enough savings to cope with financial emergency. So this is why we're pairing this conversation about financial health as well as physical and mental health. We think they kind of go together. We just want to have this a preventative action for you to really care about your future, which is alongside that financial protection. But I'm not going to help you with that. I obviously can't remember my own name half the time. These wonderful panelists are the ones that are going to help you. So I'm going to ask you all to introduce yourself very quickly. Let's do it alphabetically. That means Farida, you go first, if that's okay.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Carmel. So, hi everyone, welcome. Really excited to be here tonight. So I work at Paradigm Norton, and I think I've pretty much always known I wanted to help people in some way. And when I was 12, I was really lucky. I came across this TV show called Your Money or Your Life and realised actually I can use my love of maths to help people. So living the dream. Since then, 12 was a few decades ago now, but yeah, I have been at Paradigm Norton for over 5 years as a client manager, and Carmel mentioned our sustainable investment portfolio as well. So that's kind of been my passion project over the last couple of years. Really excited to have that launched. So any questions, then please do let me know.
Joanne, do you want to go next?
Hi, so I'm Joanne Wormold and I am the founder and director of Select Training CIC. So we assist organisations in writing their menopause policies, risk assessments and reasonable adjustments. And we also train menopause champions in the workplace and in the community. So we really want to empower as many women as possible to have a positive journey through the menopause.
Hi everyone, I'm Manisha Morgan and I help women to change their lifestyle to look amazing, feel amazing, lose fat forever without the BS.
Love that. We'll talk about that in a bit. Okay, Joe. I've sort of, if anyone's watched the other panel that I did, I kind of weaved in very slowly onto the subject matter, but there is so much to cover here. I just want to dive in. I want to know all about menopause because, like I say, I think it could be knocking on my door. So let's go straight there. Can you tell us, I think we all know what menopause is. Can you just tell us what the main signs are? Forgetfulness, and how is it likely to affect us, in different ways?
Absolutely, yeah. So menopause is basically our body's way of saying, right, that reproductive chapter is over, let's turn the page. It officially happens when we haven't had a period for 12 months. And that usually happens around the age of 45 to 55, with the average age in the UK being 51. But the fun does not start there, as we know, Carmel, because we've got the perimenopause, and that is the lead up to the menopause, which can last several years. And it's where our hormones really start to fluctuate, especially estrogen and progesterone. So those bring around that chaos in the body. So your classic symptoms such as brain fog, hot flushes, night sweats, mood swings. It's also not just physical. So 1 in 3 women will suffer mental health challenges throughout the perimenopause. And it's so important to acknowledge that everybody's journey is unique to their bodies. So some people may sail through with just a few extra warm moments, while others may feel like an alien in their own bodies. And it's important to acknowledge as well that you're not failing, you're not alone, and it is hormonal. And that's why it's so powerful to hold these webinars, to talk about it, because the more that we share, the more we understand, and the easier it is to find the help that we may need.
Yeah, I think I feel like it's one of those things that, like I was saying, I feel like I've always known about menopause, but I've just never not really known that much. And this kind of, and it's only now when I'm sort of at this age and I'm hearing more and more about it that I'm sort of picking things up. But I do feel like people weren't sort of talking about it. It feels like there's a bit of a a bit of a change, and more people are sort of sharing and talking about it and stuff like that. But I wish someone had spoken to me about it maybe in my 30s, and it was just more of a common conversation. But I think that's kind of classic for a lot of stuff that women go through, isn't it? It's all this kind of taboo and secret and stuff. So I'm really glad that we're doing this today. So Manisha, I'm going to come to you. So given all that Jo has told us, not just in regards to menopause, like at this age range, we've got menopause going on. There's some other issues that I sort of talked about in the introduction. What should we be doing now that we're at this age range and with our movement and nutrition?
So before I answer that question, Carmen, I'm just going to answer a question that you just said. I used to work in the pharmaceutical industry. My very first job was to promote a HRT. I was 30 then, and 25 years later, I'm now finding myself in this situation, and I don't recall whether in that 6-week training course that I did, whether somebody said menopause is forever, every woman is going to experience it, or whether I just ignored it. And this is the thing, is a lot of women either have got the head buried in the sand, they don't want to know, there's too much noise. And the thing is, we need to try to change our lifestyle, the way that we eat, the way that we exercise, pretty much everything, because our body's going through such a big change, because estrogen is such a important hormone which affects pretty much every single part of our body. So it's important to change the diet. We all have experienced the fact that what we can do now, what we could do back in our 20s and 30s, we can't get away with doing it now. Our body requires nutrients more than ever. So the way that we change eating, what we eat has to change, i.e. more protein, more healthy fats, more fiber, which I'm sure we're going to talk about later on. The way that we exercise needs to change. So every woman now should be strength training, because I think you mentioned it earlier on about bone density. We need to keep our bones strong. We need to preserve our muscle mass and build on it as well. Because as we start to age, we will start to, there's something called sarcopenia, which is age-related muscle loss. We start to experience that around about the age of 30. But when we start going through perimenopause and menopause, it starts to decrease at an even faster rate. So it's really important that we understand why we need to be doing these things, why we need to be making the changes, because if we understand the why and the impact that this will have, maybe not now, but you just mentioned it, in the decades to come. So if you want to live a good, healthy, quality life in your 60s, 70s, 80s, that work has to start now. And sometimes for a lot of people, there's a lot to do. So we just need to simplify it, because there's too much noise in the menopause arena at the moment.
Yeah. And can I just go back to what you were saying about strength training? Because I hear that banded around quite a lot. And some people might think, oh, that's like lifting heavy weights in the gym, and they just don't like that. Is that what it is? Or can you just elaborate on how we could do strength training for ourselves?
So there's a few ways that you can do it. And there is I mean, look, we do need to lift heavy, but lifting heavy is subjective to the individual. My husband's 6'4". He can probably squat 150, 200 kilos. I can't do that. So, what I can squat, the next person isn't going to squat. So it's up to the individual to gradually just start from wherever they are, wherever that baseline is, and then gradually build up, build up, build up. So that's what we have to do. So there's a few ways that you can start doing it. I would always suggest that you start off initially by going to a class. Body pump is a good one because you get to know all the moves, maybe get to understand, the correct technique. If it's within your budget, then a PT would be the best option. And then from body pump, because you don't want to do body pump for too long, because that is going to, there's only so many benefits that you're going to be able to get from that. And then that's when you move on to maybe, going into the gym, using the machines, using dumbbells and doing your own kind of program, because then that will enable you to progressively overload, which is lifting heavier over a period of time. But I know a lot of people say to me, oh gosh, there's no way I could lift heavy. I just need everyone to remember that any single person that you see in the gym, they weren't born lifting heavy. They've gradually got to that place over a period of time. And for some people, it's probably even years. So lifting heavy is relative to the person who is doing the exercise. So it's always good to have a good understanding first of particularly technique, because at this age, if we, do something incorrectly, we pull a muscle, it could take quite a long time to recover. And which is why also protein is very important, because that helps to recover faster from any injuries.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I have started working with a PT, and she talked about strength training, and I find gyms incredibly intimidating. Let's be honest, the men are in there grunting, doing all that kind of stuff, and it gets a little bit like, I can't go over there. And she said, just start with some weights at home to build yourself up, and get a kettlebell, a medicine ball, start at home so you start feeling confident. But like you, she said, get into the gym and just zone out from everybody and just do your thing, and just sort of say, good for them and this good for me that I'm here and I'm doing it. I didn't know that about body pump, actually, so that's really helpful.
Yeah, it's how I started, and like I said, it just gives you a good basis. Like you could, if you do things at home on your own, home workouts are absolutely fine, but you just need to make sure that you're doing the right techniques. The gym is a very intimidating place. I totally understand, but let me tell you, most people in the gym, they're just interested in themselves. They're focused on what they're doing. They're not really interested. I mean, I've done videos where I've taken my socks off and I've got different colored socks. I've done stupid things. I know people around me are just doing their own thing, but it's our self-consciousness, which I totally understand, because you might not feel confident about what you're doing and how to. I still get it now. Sometimes I have to ask somebody, how do you, use that equipment, or can you just help me lift that down because I can't quite reach it because I'm short, So we've just got to be afraid not to be afraid to ask any questions if we're stuck, because that's what people in the gym are there for.
Yeah, and they want you to come in and keep using it, don't they, and stay signed up. So it's within their benefit to do that. I'm just going to stay with you if I can, because we sort of talked about, some of the illnesses and the threats and stuff that face women, and some women, or women in general, we're more susceptible to cancers like breast and bowel, and more susceptible, I think, to osteoporosis and cardiovascular disease. I hope this isn't scaring everybody out there, but let's talk about this. What else can we do to kind of prepare our bodies for those threats? Is it still some of the stuff that you were saying before? Is there anything else in particular we should be thinking about?
Yes, we talk a lot about the short-term symptoms of menopause, which is now, right? The forgetfulness, the joint, the pains, the anxiety, the mood swings, all of those kind of stuff is now. But the long-term symptoms are things like sarcopenia, which I've mentioned, osteoporosis, which is brittle bones, heart disease, which a lot of people, women, aren't aware of. And there was something else that you mentioned, Alzheimer's. We have a high risk of Alzheimer's. So what can we do? So we've already talked about the strength training. Walking is a great way of just keeping fit, boosting your mood. It's free, so you can make time for that, being out in nature, etc. The other thing for heart disease, the reason why women's risk of heart disease increases as we approach menopause is because estrogen is very important to control cholesterol levels. And when there's a rapid decline in in estrogen, our cholesterol levels rise. So how can we keep cholesterol levels low? Well, obviously diet, lifestyle, exercise, walking, eating healthily, all that kind of stuff. But one of the main foods is eating fiber. Generally, as a country, we don't eat enough fiber. Globally, we don't eat enough fiber. So every woman needs to be aiming for at least 25 grams a day. Don't be scared of eating pasta. Don't be scared of eating rice or bread. All the things that you probably hear a lot of people talking about, because they are really, potatoes is another good one. They are really high in fiber, and they will help reduce your risk of heart disease. Alzheimer's again is another one. So, look after your brain health, have lots of, take good quality omega-3, which is high in EPA and DHA. And one of the things that one of the early signs of Alzheimer's, if I'm right in saying, is loss of hearing. So that's something that we need to be mindful of. So I've just bought some ear, headphones, and they block out the noise. When I'm in the gym, I'm not hearing everything else, and I don't need to turn my volume up too high, because I kept getting all these notifications saying your volume's too high, your volume's too high. So please, ladies, look after your hearing as well. If you suspect that you're losing it, just go and get it checked out. I got mine checked out, and because sometimes it could just be that you got too much wax in your ears. Yeah, so I think we're just at this stage in our life now where we have to be aware of everything that is changing and then act on it. Don't let it be, because it could be something really simple that could be rectified. So yeah, don't be afraid of it.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to come to you now, Farida, because as I said, we have all of these threats coming at us, and we do have to think about it. We do, we can't, as Manisha said, bury our heads in the sand. And as I sort of mentioned at the beginning, people are kind of underprotected and not really, we obviously don't want to think about this stuff and don't want to think anything bad's going to happen to us. But I just want everyone out there that's listening to this, when I say there's stats about, as a country, we are underprotected, underinsured overall. It's not just women. I don't want to make it that. And it's not our fault. We come from this generational shift of men look after the money. There wasn't financial advertising. Financial advertising was up against all the sports events. So men were being really subjected to these financial brands and these financial products. They weren't advertising, female sports. We didn't watch female sports, 10 years ago at least, or anything that women were involved in. So please don't think that you're behind or you're failing. This is systematically, we've been let down by education and et cetera, et cetera. The tide is changing. A lot more of the wealth sits with women, and women are investing more and protecting themselves more. I just want to say that, because I hate it when people are like, God, it's just so hard for women. But Farida, I mean, this is like a conversation that's not just for women, it's for men as well, isn't it? What can we be doing financially to really make sure that we don't say if we do get ill, what money is the last thing that we have to worry about, I guess, is what I'm asking you.
Yeah, and obviously when something happens, that's like the last thing you want to be worrying about on top of everything else that you're dealing with is the money side of things. So I always like to say, hope for the best, plan for the worst. And I think the key thing to start with is just having that personal safety net. So make sure you've got an emergency fund available, just have an account. It's tucked away, so it's not kind of easy to access, but you can get to it if and when you need the money. And have about 3 to 6 months of your kind of essential spending saved within that account. So if anything does happen, you immediately know you've got that money there. You don't need to worry for a few months. You can focus on dealing with what's important. And then the other thing that's really helpful is just having an idea of actually what benefits are available to you. Like, we all spend years and years paying for our taxes, for national insurance. There are various benefits, estate benefits, that can be available. One thing to be aware of is that statutory sick pay isn't available to people who are self-employed, but there are other things, like there's the new style of employment and support allowance, or actually, if you're the main breadwinner in the household, you might be able to access something like universal credit. So don't be afraid actually to go and sign up for things like that, because you've spent so many years paying for them already. You're not asking for free money at all. And then it's making sure that you're protected. So income protection is a really great policy to have in place. It will replace your earnings and give you up to 70% of the income that you're previously getting. So again, if you can't work for whatever reason, maybe you're ill, maybe you've had an accident, then again, you don't have to worry about rushing back to work, because that's just going to make you more stressed. That's probably going to end up delaying your recovery, if anything. Mm-hmm. So yeah, make sure you've got income protection in place, because that probably will end up being worth it if you need it. And again, let's hope you don't need it, but just in case you do, definitely better to have it there.
Yeah.
And think about what kind of waiting period you have, because you can choose actually how long it takes before that income protection will start. It could be 4 weeks, it could be up to 6 months. And again, that's where that emergency fund comes into play, because the longer you don't need to start your income protection policy, the cheaper it is. So if you've got safety net in there first, then you can have a relatively cheap income protection policy in place. But if you do end up having to be off for the long term, then that will pay you all the way up until retirement if it needs to. And then another thing to think about is something like critical illness cover. So again, if you have a more serious illness, let's say unfortunately you're diagnosed with cancer, then this can provide you with a lump sum that you could maybe use to pay for your treatment costs. Maybe you could use it to pay for your mortgage. I know sort of clients who've done that. And again, it's just something that takes a lot of that stress and worry away from you at a time that's difficult enough as it is. It might be that actually you've had an accident and you've got the income protection in place, giving you those earnings, you can still pay your bills and things. But because of that, you need to make adaptations to your home. So that critical illness policy can come in really handy to give you a lump sum to be able to do that.
Yeah. And then I guess that's what you need to have. But I think some people, I always see a huge parallel between healthy eating habits, healthy workout habits, to having healthy financial habits. I always see that parallel. That's whenever whenever I'm sort of thinking about how to get my finances in order, I always kind of see it, is it like, that I try to look for the rules of thumb, like, similar to, eating these foods, don't eat these foods, work out 3 to 4 times a week, try to get out, walking 10,000 steps, like these little kind of rules of thumb that you can keep to. Is there any, so you've kind of said this is what we should have, but someone's thinking, God, saving up 6 months of salary, that's a lot. How do I even, start that? What are the sort of like healthy habits or rules, if you like, for finance that you could maybe give some people to help them kind of say, okay, so how do I do this?
Yeah, great question. So I think similar way with working out, it's always much better to be disciplined rather than rely on that day-to-day motivation, because life's always going to get in the way. There's always going to be some excuse, some reason not to do it. But just making it a habit means that it's going to happen. And it always feel like budgeting, but you're always going to feel better if you know that you have control of your finances. So just think about how you're going to feel afterwards. I get it, it's boring, it's hard, finances are stressful, but I promise you'll feel better for doing it. It'll be one less thing to worry about. And stress also has those kind of physical symptoms as well. So yeah, there's so many benefits to actually just tackling it head on.
Yeah.
But like with anything, like with the diet, plan for those cheat days. Don't just have the splurges and don't have like zero accountability. You can't just be frugal all the time. You can't be like, okay, here's my budget, I'm only ever going to spend like £100 a month on my food, because that's probably not realistic. So make sure you do actually allow yourself room to be realistic, to continue doing things, because even things like just having a budget to be social, those interactions are so important for our mental health as well.
Yeah. Someone said to me, I remember someone's made the parallel once. I was at a talk once and someone was saying, oh, looking at your bank account and your finances is very similar to, it's like, it's not something, if you feel like you're struggling with money and you're not on top of your finances, it's like you have to just look at the bank account and look at what you're spending and look at where your money's going. And some people that might be in debt, it's like, just look at what that credit card debt is, just look at it and add it all up, what that debt is, which could be a really scary number, but just like rip off the band-aid. And it's very similar to that kind of like doing a diary of everything that you're putting in your body, and that that scary bit where we go, I remember after I had my son, and you know, and then just it was lockdown and I had my son at the same time. I mean, that was just perfect storm for me to just gain a ton of weight, and I just had to get on those scales and I had to look. And I know it's not all about weight on the scales, it's also about inches and how you feel, but it was just like ripping off that band-aid and looking at the weight I had become, to kind of give me something to kind of start with, like that barometer, and then work away from there and think about what I needed to do.
Yeah, looking at your bank balance is kind of like looking in the mirror, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so.
It's pretty horrific sometimes, but it is necessary.
A lot of coffee, basically. I should have started my own coffee shop by now. I'm really conscious that we're coming up to sort of question time. Please, guys, do put your questions in the Q&A box and we will get to them in about sort of 10 minutes. And, you know, just throw them in now, because I know we're throwing out a huge amount of information at you. On that point, Joe, this is really stressful. We are leading super stressful life. Midlife women seem to be, you know, you've got kids, maybe you've got, I mean, you think about my experience, I've got like a young child and I've also got a mother that needs support and care. I'm running a business, you know, your relationship, I've got a social life. It's a lot, and then all of this on top, and it's stressful, and money is stressful. And I know that you also do a lot of work in the mental health space, and I think it's really important that we talk about that, because stress can also be a big cause of a lot of illnesses and problems. Manisha, I know you're kind of going to have some things to think about that. How do we stay sane when, particularly when menopause wants us not to be sane, and those, did you call them raging hormones or charging hormones, or feeling alien? How do we keep that all under control? Like what should we be doing?
So how do we stay sane? That is a golden nugget of a question, isn't it? I would say, honestly, there's some days that we won't stay sane, and that is perfectly okay. So I like this analogy that I read, and it said the perimenopause is like walking on a tightrope whilst blindfolded, juggling fire, and somebody hands you a screaming toddler and a credit card bill. So some days we're not going to stay sane. You know, our hormones are raging, our mood's on a roller coaster, our sleep might be out of sync. And what we've got to remember is we need to give ourselves some grace. So our body is working overtime to navigate these huge changes. So survival techniques, I would say number one is pick your non-negotiables. So whether that be in saying I'm spending 10 minutes outside a day, that's what I'm doing, or I'm having this cup of tea in peace, and realizing that you don't have to do everything. I think another survival tip would be to really track your mood and your sleep, because you'd be surprised at how much power there is in understanding what is going on with your body. And, you know, we alluded to it before, that there is actually a wealth, you know, of symptoms. Like Manisha said, you know, I wasn't aware of the hearing loss being linked to Alzheimer's, and to just track these symptoms and your unique journey, and know your body and speak and take that to your, you know, GP, is there's power in that. I think the third thing, and for me, I think it's the most important when we think about and we talk about mental health, is talking. So talk about it. We are not meant to navigate this journey alone. So talking to your partner, to your friend, to a therapist, but there is power in talking about this. And people, you know, when we talk about mental health and how to stay sane, it's always about self-care. And you think, like you said, you know, I've got aging parents, I have got a business to run, I've got children. I can't take a day out to go to a spa and drink, you know, a green smoothie. I can't. But that, it doesn't, self-care doesn't have to mean that. And I think that's what we need to realise. Self-care and looking after ourselves can be saying no and putting yourself as a priority. So they would be my tips to saying would be, that would be my survival guide.
Yeah. And Manisha, I don't know if you can add to this. I know you know, that kind of link between exercise and mental health. You know, for me, when my personal trainer told me, you know, I want you to do 4 workouts a week, you know, they're only 40 minutes, but and try and get 10,000 steps in, and you know, can you track your food for me so I can see it? I knew that all of this stuff was really essential, but it just felt like another thing to do. But can you talk to how that stuff that I'm doing is not just about my body, it is also about the mental health brain. It is about keeping your brain good, isn't it, as well?
Yeah, I mean, mental health has to be our number one priority, really, doesn't it? And like you know, Joanne said, a lot of women, we have the guilt factor, don't we? You know, we have to learn to prioritize ourselves because we've been so busy looking after children, you know, being an employer, doing this, that, and the other employee, and it's now time. You shouldn't feel guilty about putting yourself first. But yeah, could you just remind me of the question, Carmen?
Just, you know, or the ways like nutrition and movement can help our mental health.
Yeah. So again, the thing is, you know, all the things that you've just mentioned about doing your workouts, getting you walking, it's a full-time job. So my tips would be to find you, like John said, find your non-negotiables. What are you going to do every day? Just a couple of things. Always start with the minimum and then aim to, you know, if you do more than that, then that's brilliant. But try not to do everything. Everything is important. It is, yeah. Every single thing that we have talked about today, everything that I've talked about is important. But even doing 1 or 2 things every day can make the world of difference. For example, sleep is a really underrated factor. Yeah, if you have a good night's sleep, you'll wake up in the morning refreshed, energized, in a better mood. You're more likely to go and do your exercise. You're more likely to eat, you know, healthier meal. So just don't underestimate the impact that just these little things will have. So, you know, and those little things might change from week to week. This week it could be sleep. Next week it might be easier for you to focus on your food. The week after it could be easier for you to focus on something different. It's fine. It's just doing what's going to work for you. Our environment is always changing. Work life is changing. Family life is changing. Our stresses are changing. So you have to be flexible. You know, for those people who say, well, I must do it, I must do it, I must do it. Yes, it's great if you can. But again, this is where the compassion comes in. Don't be so hard on yourself. Yeah, be willing to be flexible, be willing to accept that the best way to improve your health and well-being is understanding that you're not always going to be consistent. Yeah, it's okay as long as you understand that and as long as it doesn't become a habit that you're not becoming you know, inconsistent in it. So just pick a couple of things that you want to do that's going to be easy, like the quick wins. Yeah, pick those. So if you're already walking, brilliant, walk a little bit more. Yeah, if you're already tracking your calories, brilliant. What about you start planning your meals the night before? You know, it just these little small habits, they're all little milestones, aren't they? They're going to help us in achieving the end result. Yeah, for some people, we can do everything. It's taken me years to get to the point where I can now tick all the boxes every single day, but it's years.
Yeah.
Not, and I think that's the other thing. I think a lot of people think, oh well, oh God, it's been a month now and I still don't know this. Well, you know, you've all 3 of you here have got good jobs. If I was to come and if I was to come into your world for a day, it's going to take me months and months to become brilliant and confident at doing what you're doing. So we just have to remember that this world that we're now going into isn't the norm for us. So we just need to educate ourselves, empower ourselves, give us, you know, a little bit of compassion when we need it, and just take our time and not rush it.
Yeah, that's really helpful, really helpful. I know for me it's like the little win that I try to get every day is getting my steps in, because I also have ADHD. So and I was told that a walk in nature, and I'm very privileged that I live right next to a beautiful park, that a walk in nature without any noise in my headphones, without my phone. I carry my phone with me, but I try not to look at it. So I'm kind of feel like I'm ticking off a lot of boxes. I'm getting my exercise in. I'm really helping. I find that when I do that walk, and also I try to just combine it, because this is what we have to do, right? So my son's nursery is like a 25-minute walk away. I can walk through the park, so I take him and then I walk back. So that's like an hour walk, and I sort of add a little bit to it. And it means getting up a little bit earlier in the morning, but I feel like I've ticked quite a few boxes there. And I always find that mentally I'm a little bit more focused. I've kind of got some of that list of things in terms of my exercise and, you know, how to keep myself healthy. I've kind of done a big tick against one, and like you say, I kind of find that I'm better at what I'm eating as well. Like I just feel a little bit like, well, I feel a bit clearer about, well, okay, I feel good, so I want to keep feeling good, so I'm not going to reach for the sugar, I'm going to reach for some
It's just taking accountability, isn't it, of our own, this is accountability of our own health now. So nobody else is going to come and do it. So we have to do it for ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to go to a few questions now, because we've got like 3 in. The first question that came in is, this is for you, Farida. Where is the best place to keep an emergency fund?
Yeah, great question. So I'd probably suggest don't keep it in wherever you have your main current account, unless you're one of those people who's kind of really good, really disciplined, no, you're not going to touch it. But put it somewhere separate that you're not going to see day to day. But make sure it is accessible. And if you can get some interest on it, then that's a bonus. But the main thing is somewhere which isn't going to be too tempting to access, but you can get to it quickly if and when you need to.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Another question is, I'm entering menopause, and like other friends, this is putting a real pressure at work, where I'm getting hot flushes and fog brain. It's either I leave or I get fired. I mean, that's awful, but it's so common, isn't it, Joe? I mean, this is exactly what
Absolutely,
people
yeah.
are doing. But I'm scared about not being able to get another job, and then my pension contributions will drop. I feel really stuck. Any advice? I mean, all 3 of you could answer this question, I guess, but I'm going to go to you first, Joe, because I know you go into workplaces to help people directly or indirectly. So could you give some help on that?
So each employer should have a menopause policy, and the policies should be in, you know, on the intranet, for example. So I would absolutely be looking at that policy, and you've got you know, a right, you're protected as an employee to reasonable adjustments within that workplace. So, you know, if you are suffering with hot flushes, and for example, you know, we'd be looking at or problems with sleep. If it's reasonable, you know, that you could be in an office next to a window, that you could possibly change the uniform to wear the summer uniform as opposed to, you know, a thicker uniform. There's lots of reasonable adjustments that you can ask for, and the workplace shouldn't be exacerbating your symptoms. And that's the thing that you want to look at. So what can be done within your role in that organisation that can relieve them and not exacerbate them? So, and then the employer would do a risk assessment and look at putting those in place. So this is what, you know, why we have these menopause champions. So within the workplace, so people can go to them and say, this is what's going on. What do you think? Where can I get the help? Where can I get the support? And not feel fearful or feel like they need to leave because of these symptoms. Because what we don't want to be doing is losing brilliant women from the workplace.
Yeah.
And that's not what your employer wants either. They don't want you to leave. So that's where this reasonable adjustments come in to support women.
Great, thank you. Manisha, any kinds of like, I got told once that and you might go, that's ridiculous, that like a cup of blueberries, this was kind of for ADHD, but then someone said, I saw that someone wrote like a cup of blueberries a day, they're like amazing for the brain, and like walnuts and things are quite good brain food. Do you know of any kind of like things they could be incorporated into their diet to just help alleviate those symptoms in any way? Or even, you know, again, like definitely do strength training or try and get a walk in that would help with those symptoms just a little bit more at work?
I mean, look, all foods, the healthy foods as we know it, they all contain nutrients. They're all good for you. Blueberries has one set of nutrients. Strawberries might have something else. So there's nothing specific. You know, like I've had people say to me, "Oh, but I really don't like blueberries," or "I really don't like X food." Oh, well, don't eat it then. Eat something that you actually like, as long as it's got some form of nutrition in it. That's the most important thing. Eating a well-balanced diet is very, very important, something that a lot of people don't do. You know, eating protein, your carbohydrates, which are your complex carbohydrates, and fruit or vegetables at every meal is brilliant. You know, that helps boost mood. really paying attention to gut health is something that's often neglected. It's such a complex topic, but just simple things like just eating fruit and vegetables is great, a form of prebiotics for your gut health. And then we know that a healthy gut is linked to improved mood. So, but yeah, you mentioned seeds and nut as well. Yeah, they're really good. But I mean, everything plays a role.
Okay. And Farida, they just talked about pension contributions. Obviously, if you're not working, your pension contributions are gonna drop. Is there anything that they could be doing just in case that inevitable happens? I don't know if there's anything you can help with there, but
I'd probably say take stock of your finances as a whole, actually. Like, you know, it's great that you are worried about your pension contributions, but actually, do you need to be? Or is that kind of something which is almost a self-limiting belief for you? Have a look at everything. If you're not sure where to start, then speak to a financial planner. Like, you'll hear so many stories out there of financial planners going, I had this client come to me, they were super stressed with work, they weren't sure what they wanted to do. And I told them they're fine, they've got enough, they can retire tomorrow. So yeah, maybe you're all right actually, and you don't need to worry about it. You might not need another job, or you might be able to work part-time or something. You can earn a little less and do something that really interests you instead. So I'd always start by actually working out and understanding what you need rather than just trying to maintain exactly what you have at the moment.
yeah. I would also recommend to that person to check out our reinvention, the first one. That reinvention talk, there was Astrid from the Hustle Factory, and she deals with a lot of women that are being made redundant, losing work, having to step away from their work and reinvent and relook at their careers because of these issues. And she's absolutely great. And there was a lot of really good advice in that section about how you can kind of move to another career or move to another job, or if you do lose your job, how to kind of readjust yourself and get yourself back out there. And she's got loads of great content. So I would also recommend to that person to go and watch that webinar. Like I say, we'll be sharing the links. The next question is the magical question, because I know there's a bit of debate about this. How many hours sleep should we be getting at night? Anisha?
The sleep organization says between 6 to 8, I think it is for adults. But you know, sometimes people stress about that kind of thing because they're like, oh my God, I didn't get 6 hours, I didn't get 6 hours. It's whatever sleep you need to feel refreshed in the morning. But also let me tell you that every hour of sleep that you have before midnight counts as 2. It counts as double. So if you go to bed, I was always one of these people. I used to fall asleep about 8:30 and wake up at 5. And I used to think that was really bad. But actually now I know that it's a lot better than say having 8 hours of sleep and go to bed at 8 and waking up at whatever time than going to bed at 12 o'clock and waking up at 8 o'clock. So have a really, really good sleep routine in the evening. I'd say that's probably more important than having a good morning routine, because you can only have a good morning routine if you have a good sleep routine. So as long as you feel you know, some people can have 8 hours sleep and feel really groggy in the morning. So it's about the quality of sleep that you're getting. You know, make sure that you're in a dark room. I can only sleep with an eye mask on. I have to. That's just a habit that I've got into now. So I try and get into bed before 10:30, latest 11. Phones are our worst nightmare. I sometimes have to put an alarm on my phone if I'm scrolling. You know, just these little small things that you can do, and you should be quite disciplined with bedtime, I'm afraid.
Yeah. And Joanna, Joanne, sorry, is there obviously like menopause, and I don't know if this is what this person was alluding to, but I'm just going to add it in here. We know that menopause affects your sleep. You've said that. Is there anything that we can be doing to counteract that? Because you know, it absolutely infuriates me when you hear people going, get 8 hours of sleep, and I'm like, tell my son, tell the emails that I need to get done, you know, and I haven't been able to get them done in the day or between the hours of 5 and 8, because that's dinner time, bedtime, blah blah blah. So I'm doing emails until midnight. You know, it really infuriates me. And now, you know, the hot flushes and So is there anything that we can be doing to alleviate those nighttime symptoms of menopause?
Well, if you suffer with like the night sweats, then it's going to be difficult to get to sleep. Well, after that, so obviously keeping the room as cool as possible, and things like that, but also talking to your GP. So as I said before, tracking that, because we do need that sleep. The lack of sleep will have an impact on everything. So your brain fog will get worse. You won't be able to concentrate. So really tracking that and talking to your GP, and just being open and finding information, from either holistic point of view, from, a pharmaceutical point of view, or just keeping, that room as ventilated as possible. But there are so many options out there. So like I said before, it's the power in tracking what's going on and saying, this is what's going on for me. And, and this is triggering the following things. But I have worked with employers before where they've changed women's working hours because of the night sweat and the lack of sleep. So they've actually started with the later shift pattern, because then that was really having a knock-on effect on their role and their ability to concentrate, their ability to do that role. So within that employment, that was a reasonable adjustment. So it's looking at all of it and tracking it, I'd say.
Okay, thank you. Someone here has said that they're definitely in perimenopause, but they also have MS, very weak arms, not sure how I could do strength training as I can't lift a bag of sugar some days. Anything you could sort of help with that, Manisha, or?
Yeah, I've actually got two clients, and one of them is a very good friend of mine who's got MS. And what I say to her is, on your good days, do what you can. If you can do a little bit more, then brilliant. But on the days that you can't, that's okay. That's the kind of time. So if you're having a flare up, for example, then you're limited to what you can do. So again, for you, it might not be a question of lifting heavy for you. It might just be just getting some form of exercise done for your mental health to make you feel good. So you just have to follow what you can do especially on your good days. And your diet, vitamin D especially, speak to your doctor about that, will help you a lot with your symptoms. And what you want to try to do is to keep yourself in remission for as long as possible. So yeah, just do what you can when you can. And it doesn't have to be, so if, for example, you can only pick up 2 cans of beans, that's absolutely fine. Yeah, we just need to apply some resistance against our body. So if that's what you can do, then that's fine. That's better than doing nothing.
Thank you. Someone here, they've said, I've worked so hard to break the glass ceiling in my industry, which is technology, and I'm finally at an age of position where I can make a change from the top down for other women. But now my brain is changing. I feel like I'm losing control and my power within the board. Wow. Should I educate other men in the room about menopause? It feels embarrassing, ? And actually, there's another question after this, which is like, how can we get men involved in this conversation? I mean, again, I'm going to go back to you again, Jo, because this is kind of what you do. Do you educate the men in the room when you go and do your training, or?
Absolutely. So we know the men hold most of the positions in senior leadership, and there's no getting away from that. And when we're looking at policies, this is the policy. You're a senior leadership leader in this organisation, so you're the one who should be involved in writing this and implementing it. So you need to know. So part of my training is how to open up a conversation around the menopause. And this is where men really come into their own. We also
change the menopause. I can't wait.
We also give out a guide for partners. I don't like to call it the idiot guide because that would be unkind. But we're 51% of the population. We're in every home. So we need this isn't a women's issue. This is a health issue. So absolutely, the policies need to come from the top down. So, and we shouldn't at this age be feeling embarrassed. There shouldn't be a taboo around it. This is a hormone deficiency. So if we were deficient in any other hormone in our bodies, we wouldn't be embarrassed about it. So the more we talk about it, the more you reduce stigma. So I'd absolutely, if I was that woman in the boardroom, I'd be looking at implementing and writing that policy and and saying it, you know, with power, the power that you have and that you earned to get to that boardroom, and say, this is what we're doing, because this is supporting our staff.
And like you say, it's kind of a legal obligation, right, for
Yeah.
the employer. So even if you don't do it, if you're too embarrassed to do it and you don't want to talk about yourself, say, we need to do this for the business. I'm bringing select training in, and bring them in to do the work and have the conversation for you. I always find that I do a thing, I don't really like the term, but and I do this all the time, especially on with my partner, is what I call pink pilling, and it's kind of like a thing. It's a thing in feminist society where we just literally drip feed things, because sometimes it's just like they just haven't heard it, and I think we just need to stop being embarrassed. And I think there's also like a bit of a problem at the moment where people feel like these issues that women are facing are also being a little bit rammed down their throat, or women are angry and they're shouting about it and stuff like that, and we can't seem to win of how we communicate. And I think just that drip feed of information, just bringing it up, not being scared to say, I'm having a hot flush, or apologies, I had a bit of brain fog about that. And do you know what brain fog is? Do you want me to explain it to you so you understand if it happens again? And this kind of, in all these conversations, I think in finances, I love to drop in a little stat about about what I'll say, but not for women, because women are X, and throw something in. I don't know if any of you saw a really good example of pink pilling. There was a actress called Saoirse Ronan, and she was on the Graham Norton show, and two men were talking about, well, if I got attacked, I wouldn't get out my mobile phone. And they were talking about being attacked and what they would do in that situation. And she was like, this is what women have to think about all the time. And she just pink pilled them. I don't know if you've seen it. It went quite viral. Just this little drop of like, this is what we have to think about. And I think that's the way. And wherever you can bring men into the room subtly, do. I've taken partners, business associates, old colleagues and stuff to events that are for women, about women, so that they can hear the discussions themselves. I always check that it's not a women only room, and then I bring men. I always have my plus one as a man, and my partner has learned so much I do a lot of these events that are specifically for women. He always kind of tries to tune in and stuff like that. I think books are a good thing, leaving them around, handing them over, that kind of stuff. So if I was to help you, I've kind of been trying to pink pill for a really long time, and I think we cannot move forward in anything that does to do with women unless men are on board, and there is a way that we can help people understand. I'm just going to go quickly, we're running out of time, so
Carmen, can I just quickly mention that, see, I've got teenagers who are 13, and I think it's really important for them to understand too, about menopause, and why sometimes I might rant, and my mood might be all over the place. So I think it's a topic that everybody needs to be educated on. Obviously, children when they're old enough to kind of understand. But yeah.
No, good, really good point. There's a similar question here, so we can cover off two in the basis, and this is about supplements. So, there are any main vitamins/supplements that we should be taking during perimenopause? Two people have asked that question. Any advice?
Supplements are, oh gosh, I mean, I could talk about this for hours, but there's a lot of supplements being sold on the market right now. The majority of them you do not need. Most likely vitamin D. I've got to cover my back by saying make sure you get a blood test done first, but most people aren't at optimum levels. So we definitely need vitamin D for bone health, for immunity, for joint pain. Omega-3, which is another one, not fish oil, not cod liver oil, not krill oil. It has to be omega-3, which is high in DHA and EPA. And the other one I would say is creatine is another one as well, which has got a lot of research behind it to help with brain fog, brain function, etc. And finally, magnesium glycinate to help sleep, and sort of restless leg and things like that it can help with. So those four, I would say. Anything else, definitely not a multivitamin, please, because a multivitamin just has a little bit of everything in, and more than likely you're going to need more than just that little bit. And those little bits that you get, you can probably get through your diet anyway.
I'm a supplement junkie and I take multivitamins. I'm going to take
It's
that one.
crazy some of the amounts of money that people spend on supplements. I mean, it really, you want to save money, there you go. That's the first thing. Cut out the supplements.
Yeah, although I must say my mushroom coffee in the morning and taking ashwagandha really helps my brain. Really, I notice the difference if I'm not having that in the morning, and I don't know whether that's also helpful for brain fog. It really helps my ADHD. I really notice the difference between when I've taken it and I've not taken it, but I'm not a nutritionist like Manisha, so I'm just going to go. We're running out of time, and we might run over just a little bit. Apologies if anyone does have to jump off. Thank you for coming. We're just going to run over. You can watch the recording if you want to catch some of these. So there's a couple of questions here around going to the GP. A GP recommended something sleep station. Have you heard that, Jo? To help with sleep through the menopause. I'll read the question properly. Sorry.
Yeah.
Through the menopause, I don't sleep well. My GP suggested doing a thing called sleep station, which was great. Oh, it's just a statement. Ignore me. Sorry. Rushing around here now. So this is the last question. At what point should I be seeing the GP during perimenopause? Is there any way I can find out if I think I'm having symptoms, but I need it confirming? Is there a hormone test or anything to indicate the onset? That's a really good question, actually.
Yeah, there is that. So they would do a blood test and look at those levels of estrogen and progesterone. It's not foolproof really, because there's a threshold. So they could say, oh, you've got enough estrogen, but it doesn't know what level your estrogen in your body was before that test. So you may be having symptoms because it's dropped, but it's not dropped below the threshold. So
Right.
it's not a foolproof. So that's why I always say track your symptoms. And if you're saying, this is what happens, you know, my periods have become erratic, you know, the closer together or the further apart, plus I feel, you know, like I've got brain fog. I used to be able to do this and I can't, you know, I'm waking up and the covers are soaked, you know, I've got these night sweats. They're the symptoms that they want to be listening to, because as I say, you don't know how much you had before that blood test.
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it, as well? Because we just tend to go onto the internet, and it's, you know, like, I mean, I don't want to keep banging on about myself, but I think the problem is with my ADHD. Sometimes I'm like, is that ADHD or is it perimenopause? And the problem is that the change in my hormones with perimenopause will obviously affect my ADHD. So it's really difficult to know, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that has something, you know, like whether they've got anxiety or depression. And sometimes you're just forgetful when you're stressed and you're just got too many things in your brain. And then, you know, and then you kind of Google it, and then it's like, no, you've got high cortisol. No, you've got ADHD. No, you've got this. It's just like really hard. But then you know, you hear these stories of women going to GPs and kind of getting a little bit like eye rolling and stuff like that, isn't it? So I think it's like you say, I'm definitely going to do that. I'm going to definitely start tracking some things that are changing for me, just to kind of feel like I can have a decent conversation with the right person about it when I feel ready.
I think when you go to the GP, you have to be confident about what you're saying, because I've worked with GPs for 25 years, and you know, a lot of them aren't knowledgeable on menopause anyway. So as Joanne said, symptom tracking is the best way, because you've got the proof there. You know, go with a list of questions prepared to ask. And if they fob you off, I get this a lot with a lot of clients saying to me, yeah, but the nurse said this and the doctor said that. You've got to be confident about, you know, your symptoms, about how you're feeling, and be prepared to be challenged, because they might do that. But if you go with the evidence, then it's going to be hard for them to not take you seriously. Whereas if you're a bit wishy-washy, saying, well, yeah, I think I feel like this, you know, but go in strong, confident, be prepared.
Yeah, and I've definitely met quite a few people that are kind of, if you're privileged enough, you can potentially go private. So in terms of, there's lots of menopause coaches out there, there's lots of nutritionists out there that specialize, and I know someone that kind of does hormone testing and can help you with that. Check out their credentials, make sure they're certified, make sure they have got a good history. They're not just someone, and we know there's a lot of people out there that say they're something and they haven't done their training as good as Manisha and Jo have here. And just check out that they're reliable sources, and if you can afford to pay them for some time or for some testing, they might be slightly better for you to go to than a GP if you've got that chance. I'm going to wrap it up there, unfortunately, although I feel like we could carry on talking a little bit, although I'm just talking about myself and getting personal help. So that was
Before we do, can I just ask,
Sorry.
is there somewhere that you'd recommend tracking symptoms?
I recommend an app called Balance App. That's brilliant. And what you can do is actually, when you go to the doctors, you can send a report or print out a report, and they should be able to, well, they should be familiar with that. I don't know if Joanne's got any other suggestions, but I will say, and actually it's got a good community and everything. So personally, I would say the Balance app.
Yeah, the Balance app is brilliant. But also, I am a fan of good old pen and paper. So you can actually just write it down. So a little column, sleep, how many hours, and sometimes, if you're feeling a certain way, I always think, what happened before? Unpick that. Is there a trigger? Or the trigger might be something that you've eaten. And once you start tracking it, and you might be able to see patterns yourself.
Right. Thanks for asking that question, Frida. That's a good question. Okay, we'll wrap it up. We're 5 minutes over, but I think that's fine. I hope that was really helpful. Thank you, everyone that joined. We can't see you, but I hope you've got smiling faces, or you feel like you can go away and really do something to help for whatever reason that you came here and joined us today. As we say, we will be sharing the recording, plus we will be sharing all of Farida, Joe's and Manisha's details. So if you want to get in touch with them, if you'd like to work with them in any way, whether that's financial planning or having Joe come into your employees, to teach them about the menopause so you don't have to do it. Manisha, and she also does mental health first aid, and Manisha for nutrition help, and you're all on socials as well. We will share that all with you so that you can follow up with them if you need to, and mine. I don't know why you'd need me. I'll just talk about myself. Yeah, but there you go. Thank you so much for coming. We are back next week. We are covering retirement. That's the final one, and really talking about it very differently to what people envisage a retirement to be, specifically for women in their midlife. But thank you all for coming. Thanks for Paradigm Norton and Jess for helping us behind the scenes. Have an amazing rest of your evenings. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.